We have just witnessed the most dramatic, outrageous, and mind numbing 14 days in modern American history. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Brian Sussman here, live on Rumble. And I do appreciate your listenership. For this podcast, I'm going to be referring to notes, which you can find at briansussman.com. It's my latest blog post because, like you, unlike so many Americans who are clueless, like you, I have been gripped by the news over the last 14 days, from Saturday 2 weeks ago through Saturday night last night. And again, if you're watching this on a recorded version, I'm recording this Sunday afternoon on the 28th of July. But if you don't mind, I'm going to be referring to these notes because it's important that I get this right. You need to hear exactly what's taking place. Now, some of you are well aware that what we're seeing here is again, mind-numbing. It's stupefying. The delusion that has poured over not just the United States, but much of the world is quite frankly amazing. But in terms of America, most people have succumbed to a psychosis designed to distract them from the real world. You see, we're all glued to our phones. Everywhere you look, people are looking at their phones. They're more concerned with immediate gratification found in their social media and their favorite internet streams than they are reality. What news they do consume, oh, they say, well, I pay attention to the news. Well, it's highly edited. It's cleverly designed. It's put forward in juicy, bite-sized nuggets of agitprop, propaganda, delivered directly to their attention via algorithms designed specifically for their appetite. You see, the masses have been suckered into a political strategy. It's actually a political strategy. Take away the technology. It's a strategy that's been employed, quite frankly, throughout human history. In this particular case, it's being led by politicians, deep state, unelected bureaucrats, and crony capitalists. They all are on the left side of the aisle, way left side of the aisle. And that includes the Democrat Party. There is a book that I recently read. It's entitled Rape of the Mind by Abraham Youst Mirlo. He's a medical doctor. He was the only person in his family to survive the Holocaust. He described this strategy that's being employed currently like this. He said, and I'll go to my notes, it's an organized system of psychological intervention and judicial perversion through which a ruling class can imprint their own opportunistic thoughts upon the minds of those they plan to use and destroy. Now, let me repeat that because there's a lot there. What we're seeing played out in America and much of the developed world right now, it's an organized system. This isn't random. This is well planned. It's an organized system of psychological intervention. So they're screwing with our minds, and judicial perversion, using the laws of the land and twisting them and contorting them, through which a ruling class, the left, can imprint their own opportunistic thoughts upon the minds of those they plan to use and destroy. Often referred to by their ultimate masters as useful idiots. That what Benjamin Netanyahu said that about these absolute idiots protesting at the U.S. Capitol for Hamas. It's just amazing. Do they know what they're even thinking? Of course they don't. They chant, from the river to the sea. If you were to ask them, what river? What sea? They would have no idea. But let me get back to my notes. These useful idiots are the people required for a country or a nation or an empire to collapse, leading the way to a totalitarian state. And history proves such transformations happen very quickly. Last night, I watched a film. It's called The Pianist. It was, I think, produced in the year 2000. It has to do with, and it's based on a true story. It was a classical, well known pianist in Poland who was Jewish, came from a very nice family, but then the Nazis came to take over Poland and they rounded up millions of Jews and exterminated them. And they did so in short order. They took over the country quickly, rounded people up, and then over a period of years, exterminated millions. He survived. What struck me as I watched this very well produced film, and this is something that people need to realize today, because most of us have never witnessed a takeover before. There are some of you who may be formerly from the Soviet Union, you've seen it. Some of you from Cuba, you've seen it. Some of you from Central American countries, you've seen it. But most people here think, oh, everything's going to be fine. It's you're overblowing this. Come on, quit scaring everybody. And you think back, okay, well, what was different about Poland in the late 1930s? People would think, well, that was, gosh, almost 100 years ago. I mean, they were so far behind. It was like ancient history. No, 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 no. When you watch this film, you're reminded the people dressed nicely. They had wonderful, well built, well furnished homes. They had jobs. There was economic progress. It was really a wonderful time to live. The only thing that was different about that time and this time was the fact that they didn't have TV and they didn't have internet. But other than that, people were pretty much people and they were all the same and they were all duped so quickly. So quickly. So history proves these transformations take place instantly, so to speak. So now let's just look for a moment at what's happened over the last 2 weeks. I mean, in 14 days, a former president was as close to being assassinated as is humanly possible on live TV. A current president goes from stating he is not going to step down unless, quote, the Lord Almighty tells him otherwise. And then just a couple days later, he quickly decides against running for a second term with, by the way, no mention of that conversation with God. Next, completely sidestepping the formal democratic process. This is just amazing. The democratic process employed to select a presidential candidate in the United States of America. The Democratic Party cleverly convinces its voters that the current vice president is the natural choice. In fact, they even use those words in one of their dialogues, the natural choice. In fact, not just the natural choice, but the only choice to run against a man that they claim, their words, will destroy democracy. More on that in just a moment. And by the way, the media completely complicit with all of this. They besmirch the assassination attempt on the former president. They won't say anything about the lack of security. They won't say anything about how in the world a lone sniper could get set up in that one particular location. They ignore statements from guys like Congressman Eli Crane, a former Navy SEAL sniper who visited that location and said, this is absolute insanity that the security was so lax. They dismiss all of that. They think they solved everything by the Secret Service director resigning. They want to sweep it under the rug. There are so many investigations taking place right now on Capitol Hill regarding that assassination attempt that, guess what? Nothing is going to be concluded. They need one study, one investigation. Not, I believe there are something like 5 going on right now. So we had that take place. And then, of course, the shenanigans employed to make sure that the vice president becomes the president, that's all being swept under the rug as well. No one wants to talk about that. She's the natural choice. But there were 2 other items that occurred in the past 14 days that are more than just worth noting. First, there were major, violent, anti-Jewish protests at the U.S. Capitol. Now, these mobs aren't just against the nation of Israel. This had nothing to do with Benjamin Netanyahu coming to town. These mobs have been led to hate God's chosen people. It's 1939 in Poland all over again. And it's chilling. And their contempt for Jews is gaining steam amongst more and more young people in the United States and around the world. It's amazing what's happening in Europe. This is just shocking. It's like history repeating itself. These young people in the United States who have this penchant now for hating Jews, by the way, will be voting in this next election, and they will be voting for the former vice president, who on this particular issue, like the slick politician she is, talks out of both sides of her mouth. This squarely places her on the side of the radical Muslims. And then, this is on the international level, but it's stupefying at the same time. We watched the Olympic opening ceremonies depict a reenactment of the Last Supper with Jesus, the Son of God, the Savior, the one who said, I am the way, truth, and life. No man comes to the Father but by me, that guy, being depicted as an obese woman. And the disciples dressing in drag. Can I tell you something? Get ready, my Christian brother and sisters, because you're moving up quickly on the left's hate list. You see, these are fear tactics, and they're part and parcel to the strategy. I believe George Orwell and others call it the big lie, the big lie. For example, the left describes the man who's currently standing in the way of their efforts to continue to occupy the White House as a monster. He's a monster. He's a threat to democracy. He's a dictator. These are the scare tactics they employ to draw people in to their clutches. Useful idiots. And of course, regarding the former president's followers, the left describes them as violent extremists, gun-toting violent extremists. And to prove their point, they point to a date in January 2021. That's our proof. You see, government officials and their comrades in the media use things like contradictory reports, totally nonsensical information, and even flat out lies to confound the populace. History illustrates that the drip, 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 drip of confusion put forth by the media, put forth by the politicians, leads the masses into acceptance of Totalitarianism. Oh, we need a regime change. We need something new. Communism has been tried before, but this time we can make it work. After all, those promoting this strategy, those promoting the big lie, promise a utopia. I talk about this at length in Climate Cult, the subtitle Exposing and Defeating Their War on Life, Liberty, and Property. They put forth a utopia. If we could just fix the climate, it's going to be a brand new world. In fact, here's how the WEF describes it, the World Economic Forum. One of their spokespersons has said, in our new world, you will own nothing and you will be happy. This is what they put forward with communism. Well, all of your needs are going to be taken care of. You'll be paid fairly. Housing will be inexpensive. Food will be inexpensive. Oh, we'll have health care as well. Don't worry. Vote for me and I'll set you free. The Democrats are promising a leftist utopia. Look at the first ad for Kamala Harris. Notice I haven't used any politician's name until that slipped. Look at the current campaign ads for the former vice president. The new Democrat nominee. First and foremost, abortion on demand. You see, the Democrats are all about promoting self because they know the time in which we live. They know how social media promotes self. It's not just selfies. Everything on the social media is about you, about me, about my. They don't do this in China. China owns TikTok. They don't allow TikTok for their own people. TikTok is a device being used to promote self and for them to get every piece of information on you they possibly can. They want to know you better than you know yourself. But the first TV ads for the woman who wants to become president of the United States, abortion on demand, first and foremost. That's sex without consequences. Me, self, self, self. Transsexual acceptance, which throws out biology, embraces mental illness, and supports immorality. Self, self, self. Me, my. Also, in the ad, welfare and free healthcare for all. In other words, create a society of drones like they attempt to do in all communist regimes. The Democrats are promoting a leftist utopia. This has all been in the last 14 days, the last 2 weeks. But wait, there's more. And the media has done a terrible job of exposing this. They've swept it right under the rug. During these same 14 days, China, a nation, by the way, that is sworn to dominate the West by 2049, their words, dominate the West by 2049. What's so special about 2049? It's the centennial of their communist regime. When these people make goals, they achieve them. They want to dominate the West, dominate the United States of America by 2049. The clock is ticking. China, along with Russia, who, by the way, loathes the inalienable rights of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, China and Russia did joint military exercises off the coast of Alaska. Joint military exercises. During these same 14 days, the U.S. debt is just about to surpass $35 trillion. If you do the math on that, that comes out to $237,000 per taxpayer. Where are we going to get that money? And over these last 14 days, we saw many more immigrants illegally come into the United States of America. Since Joe took office, since the current president took office 3.5 years ago, over 10 million people have illegally made it into the United States of America. And when they come here, they get a big grab bag of goodies and they can sign up for all sorts of freebies that, in many cases, allow them to stay at very nice hotels in major metropolitan areas like New York City. And I should also mention this. We know that there have been some 1,500, it's 1,400 and change, 1,400 at least known or suspected terrorists come into this country. You see, the collective events of the past 2 weeks have made these 2 weeks some of the most historic, not to mention outrageous and delusional in modern American history. And yet, so many people just stare into their screens, believing what they're told to believe. After all, if I just wait long enough, I'll own nothing and I'll be happy. My friends, thank you for watching this live edition of the Brian Sussman Show podcast. I hope that you'll take a moment to follow me here on Rumble, that you'll share this podcast, and that we will be able to keep in touch. You can always go to briansussman.com where you can read the article that I was referring to in this podcast, and you can message me there. You can comment, message me, and I look forward to hearing from you. God bless you, my friends. We'll continue to pray for the United States of America. I'm praying for an awakening among the populace. And I'm praying for good things, good news this coming November. Make sure you vote and make sure you convince others to not sit on the sidelines and certainly not vote for the other team promising that utopia. God bless you, my friends. Until next time.